This episode is sponsored by Doer. I'm David Plotz, CEO of CityCast. I'm lounging in my performance denim slim straight jeans from Doer. They're incredibly comfortable. They're 5 times stretchier than traditional denim. But what's even better is that they feel stretchy without looking stretchy, so you can take them anywhere and look good. I've been wearing them to travel, out for dinner, now just hanging around my house since they are so delightful to stretch out in. Doer are pioneers of blending technical innovation with everyday clothing. They invented the original performance denim, so it's not surprising that Doer has made jeans that are the best of both worlds. Classic jeanswear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. Also, they're the right color. Not too excessively deep blue and also not that middle school jean light blue, but a lovely indigo. My girlfriend, in fact, called them the perfect color. And she's got taste. Simply put, Doer makes the world's most comfortable pants without having to sacrifice style. Get a pair for yourself or as an amazing holiday gift. Go now to shopdoer.com/CCAustin. You'll get 15% off your first order. That's shopdoer.com/CCAustin for 15% off. shopdoer.com/CCAustin.
Do y'all ever feel like you just have too much stuff? The closet is overflowing, the garage is overflowing, or like me, that chair of donations is really overflowing? That's where Adios comes in. They're a local Austin service that makes it ridiculously easy to say goodbye to your old stuff and feel good doing it. Go to sayadios.com and order a bag, fill it up, text them, and they will pick it up from your doorstep. So get on over there, use code CityCast for 50% off. That's sayadios.com. One bag, one text, one less thing on your mind. Prop Q failed overwhelmingly in Tuesday's election. So what does that tell us about how Austinites are feeling? Today on CityCast Austin, I'm checking back in with 2 guests we had on before the elections to unpack the results and talk about what comes next for our city. It's Monday, November 10th. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. Hello, I am here today with Robin Rather of the Zilker Neighborhood Council and former chair of Save Our Springs. What is up, Robin?
Good morning.
Oh, man. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm so excited to have you back on here because I think we had a great conversation last time. Austin voters overwhelmingly rejected Prop Q last Tuesday night. Tell me what went through your head when you first heard the news and realized that it was not going to happen.
You know, first of all, I was surprised that it was such a staggering amount.
Same.
And I did want to check it. Like I refreshed the page a few times. Like, okay, really? Is that like just, the 5 people? Is that just, what's the base on that sample? And I think a lot of people were surprised, not so much that Prop Q went down, because I think by the time election day rolled around, a lot of people suspected just anecdotally that it wasn't happening. But I think a lot of people were surprised by the sort of seismic smackdown.
Turnout,
if you will. It was a higher turnout than some people thought, and it was a much larger margin than some people thought. And it was very clear that a very high percentage of Democrats voted against it, which when I was with you before, that was one of the things we talked about. There was a theme, it was a theme throughout the campaign was, real Democrats don't vote against tax increases. Well, yeah, they do.
Yeah, evidently. So I'm curious because we talked about this a little bit the last time you were here. All of the different messaging that was going back and forth. And from your perspective, what about the anti-Prop Q messaging do you think resonated most with voters? You think there was like a particular argument or moment that you think really shifted the conversation?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I know what it was for the no vote. And it was, can people afford this? Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
No one thought, generally speaking, that people in Austin could afford an even higher tax increase. To me, that was the alpha and omega. That's what cut through. There wasn't a big debate about it. And I think the other side, through all kinds of things, I do feel, and I say this with respect, but I do think the pro Prop Q side had messaging that simply did not work. That picture that had Trump and Abbott on it, a kind of a caricature of them,
Mm-hmm.
that did not motivate voters that I saw at
It
the
missed the
grassroots
mark.
level. It really didn't. People that want to protest Trump and Abbott went to no kings. They're not going to the ballot box on a tax increase that they know our own city council created. That people weren't confused who's to blame for this. And I think their messaging, if you love Austin, you'll vote for the tax increase. That didn't work. Even at the end, they tried the care not cuts messaging. And I think that also bombed because people were like, well, if you care about me, don't increase my taxes. Keep
Yeah.
the city affordable for me and people like me. People were mad. People are very mad at this council.
I'll be honest, I was on the fence until I got to the voting booth, right? And even after I voted, I thought, well, okay, I've made my vote known, but I'm thinking that this is going to go through, because I was like, people aren't going to show up. I had all of this wrongly, it turned out to be completely incorrect, preconceived ideas about Austinites being apathetic about this, and turns out that was incorrect. And so, what do you think overall this vote says about how Austinites are feeling right now? Sounds like you're saying they are mad, they're pissed.
Well, I think people they definitely have a lot of feels.
Well, of
Okay,
course,
this is
yeah.
how I would frame it out. So, a lot of people do not like the direction that Austin is heading in.
Mm,
Okay, a lot of people feel like Austin's just off track.
okay.
And the root of that is, of course, people feel like it's not affordable. People feel like it's too corporatized, it's too gentrified.
Mm,
People feel like those cool local businesses that used to define Austin are going out of business right and left and getting replaced with, generic stores from out of town that you could find in any city. People are worried because they see our water situation, our tree canopy situation. They see our natural environment being basically destroyed, and they see a lot of these DB90s, aka, high, tall condo buildings going up right in the middle of neighborhoods. And so I think people are upset because they see, okay, we're not getting more affordable. We're getting uglier. The things I used to love, I
yeah.
look cool little venues and clubs and funky little shops, they're going down. And so I think there's a lot of feelings about that,
Like we're losing our identity.
losing our identity and pushing people out,
Yeah.
pushing friends out. But then you get underneath that and you're like, well, who who should be fixing these problems? And that's when people look at this council and they feel like the council's out of touch. The council doesn't listen. The council has a very, I would say, somewhat patriarchal attitude. Like, we know best. The community, we're not listening to the community because you all don't know anything. We're the ones that are the experts. And that's not been typical of our councils in the
Right.
past. Everybody's had their issues with councils of the past, but you could at least say they listened and they were in community with their constituents. And this council is quite, generally speaking, quite detached and kind of infamous for they don't care how many people go down to the council chambers and say how they feel. They're just they're going to bulldog through what they want. But what it amounted to was a huge amount of organic pushback on
Right.
this tax increase. I just want to point out there were some PACs that spent some money on this election, but most people I know did not vote the way they voted because some PAC texted them. They felt it. It was their own feelings. And they were saying, I don't like the way this is going, and I don't want my taxes increased to pay for more destruction of the city I love. So, no.
Before election results were officially called, Mayor Kirk Watson, implied that Prop Q's failure sends a message about the lack of trust in city government. He called it early. But what I thought was really, really, really interesting is that he straight up I'd said this the other day. He said the quiet thing out loud. He was like, the city doesn't trust us. This shows a lack of trust in city government. Do you agree, first of all? And how should the city respond to rebuild that trust?
Well, first of all, I think that Watson, his message was exactly right. I was at a little watch party with some people, and a lot of folks were speculating, man, he didn't write that tonight. He's had that in the,
Oh, he had
he's
it in
been
the
ready to
can,
hit
ready
send
to
on
go.
that for a while now because it was very carefully crafted. And he did say, I think, exactly the right thing. This is a trust problem.
Yeah.
And some of the other council members followed suit on that. Um, how they can rebuild trust and how they come out of this is the $64 million question, literally. And
Yeah, literally.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see. But I think it's really important that if it were me, if I was on that
Okay.
council, I'd be like, look, clearly we need to take a step back. We need to reflect and get ourselves together before we come back out and start spending more money and making more decisions. Message received. Let's recalibrate. And I do think the dynamics on the council are going to be somewhat crunchy because, Watson in that same message, Watson was very clearly saying, hey, look, let's let the city manager deal with this. Let's not renegotiate. Let's not retract the
Hmm.
deal. Let's not go back and do what we did in August that led to
Yeah.
this. Let's
We have a
just
budget. It's balanced. Let's just go with it.
yeah, let's just get on down the road. Let's not subject ourselves to any more damage. But the question is, are the other council members? I mean, you had Chito Vila on this show, I believe, last
Mhm.
week. What is he going to do? I'm very interested at Council Member Mike Siegel. Some of the activists that are close to his office and helped him get elected, they're already calling on okay, let's go after the police contract. Which honestly, what I'm hearing again at the grassroots level is no one wants that. Of all the things to do, especially right away, that seems like it would be the single most divisive thing
Well,
that could happen.
even if we did want it, ain't nothing you could do about that. That is fixed. That like it's been made very clear to us from the governor's office that that is not going to be touched. So that is just not a smart use of time right now, I don't think. But to your point though, I am curious. I do want to know. It's been rejected now. So like what do you think should be the acceptable path forward? Like, what should they focus on instead of Prop Q or the police budget to address the issues that this was supposed to fund? Like, what should they be doing now?
One of the clear messages from this election is people feel like this council has had a lot of wasteful spending. So again, if I was on the council, number one move, let's rescind that $450 million that we approved for the convention center. Let's
Ooh.
roll back that convention center decision altogether, because to me, the convention center is the mother of all symbols of wasteful spending. We had a perfectly good convention center, and people are like, yeah, but they already blew it up. Well, one thing they could do is they could actually, that, if you know the downtown area, that is 6 square blocks, a
Yes.
prime city. But first thing they could do, let's sell 4 of those 6 blocks to a private developer. That would be, I mean, probably $500 million. You could fund several years worth of budget deficits
Yeah.
just by doing that. Then you could take the other 2 square blocks and maybe make a cool urban forest, or you could do some kind of cultural thing. There are all kinds of things you could
So
still
no convention center. No convention center.
no, in my view, they're already building one. It's not a huge one. They're already building one at Circuit of the Americas. There's nothing that says we have to have 2 convention centers, and there's nothing that says we have to have a convention center right downtown. But they probably won't do that.
Yeah.
I would, and if they couldn't do that, then I would go ahead and cancel that cap and stitch spending. That's $100 million immediately, and some of that is symbolic. Like they might not be able to translate that right into the general fund,
Mm.
but those are the kinds of wasteful projects that people were flipping out about. I think you and I talked last time. Could they give a raise to the public service employees, to the city employees that make less than $150,000, but maybe hit pause on the ones for people that make over $150,000. That's
Yeah.
a cut I would love to make, but is one that is at least something they could consider. Park maintenance, I think there's a lot that they could do with park maintenance. I'm all for parks, as you know.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot that they can do with the budget that they have. Focus on cleaning the bathrooms, picking up the trash, real basic stuff. Don't mow as much. That's better for the soil and the water anyway. I think there's things that they can do to some
Trim the
trim
fat.
downs.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. In your opinion, especially like from the grassroots level, what should people be paying attention to? Because I feel like if my time at City Hall taught me anything, it is, after elections tend to be when things get busy and things start moving and actions start being made. And it's like, oh man, people really should be paying attention to this time right after an election. So from the grassroots level, what do you think constituents need to be paying attention to right now in the coming weeks or months?
Number one, I think, what are they going to do about the trust factor? Do they just shrug it off and keep doing what they've been doing? Do they make some kind of dramatic change in the way that they communicate with their community? Do they make some kind of effort to say, wow, I really breached the trust and I know it. Let's break bread together. Let's figure this out. Let me get closer. Let me listen better. When you're in a relationship, if I've messed up with a boyfriend, I'm going to make it right.
Right.
I'm going to be quick about it. Do they do that? Another thing I'd be watching for, do they take any real accountability for Prop Q going down? I noticed one of the campaign consultants this morning, he tried to say, oh, Prop Q is just about people are upset about the national economy. Once again, trying to blame Trump. And people are upset about the national economy, but that doesn't mean they don't know who to focus on for making their city of Austin life harder and more expensive people can handle. And so I would be watching, do they take any ownership of this? Also, I'd be watching, are they putting it all on TC Broadnax to fix this problem? And like, okay, not on us. We don't want any more damage on us. Let's
hands up.
Or do they try to micromanage and keep fighting for their pet projects and the things that they like they did back in August? Something I'd also be looking for is, does this council take care of our public safety folks? The EMS equipment, they need that. The firefighters, they need 4 firefighters on a truck, not 3. Like, are they messing around with public safety? Are they taking care of our most vulnerable? Are they taking care of public health issues? Are they taking care of business at the basic level? Or are they drifting off into unnecessary projects that would be great if we were flush, but we definitely can't afford? I'd really be watching that. And maybe the number one thing is, a big thing in this election was people knew the council had already spent like $500 million on homelessness. And a big question here is, what are they going to do? We have a homeless problem. They didn't fix it with all that they already spent. What are they going to do about that? What is the strategy there? And how can we come out of Prop Q feeling good about how we're going to move forward?
Robin, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me about this again. You really have given me a lot to think about. And I appreciate any conversation that I have when I walk away from it with like, yeah, that's actually a great point that I didn't think about. So like, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being on and having the conversation with me.
Well, I appreciate you too, Nikki. And I do want to just say, I heard a lot of hope last night. I heard, and you saw it on social media, people are like, wow, our voice still matters. We can still shape Austin into what we need it to be. And that's what I want people to be thinking about is, okay, voters have spoken, and how do we take it to the next level? How do we elevate? How do we build the Austin we need and want? And I want us to be hopeful about that.
We'll be back with our conversation with Councilmember Chito Vela right after this break. Imagine this, your next podcast recorded in the same studio where you're hearing this right now. That's Trick Hat Workway. Trick Hat is Austin's most hospitality-driven co-working space. And yes, they've got a pro-level podcast studio designed for creators, teams, and businesses who want high-quality recordings without the stress of hunting down space or gear. Just show up, plug in, and hit record. Outside the studio, Trick Hat's got you covered. From private offices to dedicated desks, they offer flexible co-working options to fit any business or entrepreneur's needs. And can we talk about the perks? Freshly brewed coffee from Manana, endless snacks, and crispy Diet Cokes. But what really makes Trick Hat different is the energy. From weekly networking opportunities to community trick chats, it's more than a place to work. It's where Austin comes to connect, create, and have fun doing it. Whether you're producing your next big idea or just need a space that feels good to work in, Trick Hat Workway is waiting for you, where it's always old Austin, new tricks. Visit trickhatworkway.com to learn more today. Hello, I am here today with Council Member Chito Vela, who is Council Member for District 4.
That's the one.
What's up, Council Member Vela? How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good.
So we had you on to talk about Prop Q. Now we're having you on to talk about the aftermath of Prop Q. And so Austin voters overwhelmingly rejected Prop Q last Tuesday night. And so I want you to tell me what went through your head, like when you first saw the news.
Well, I'm disappointed. There's a lot of good services that were part of Prop Q, mental health services, improving our parks, homelessness, and it's disappointing because we're not going to be able to make those investments. But I understand. It was a really tough time right now. I think the future, a lot of people's kind of vision of the future right now is dark, and it's tough to ask people to make an investment in the future when there's so much uncertainty and risk and kind of unknown out there. I mean, we're in the record long federal government shutdown. We have the school district closing schools and struggling with issues. It's a tough time. I understand. I mean, I understand where voters are coming from, and ultimately, I mean, it's their call, and we're going to do our best with what we've got.
Yeah. So it's funny because we heard from some people who voted against Prop Q that say that Prop Q's messaging really missed the mark. What do you say to this? And looking back, what do you think could have been done differently? What would you have done differently? Or is there anything we could have done differently?
That's a really good question. When you lose 2-1, I don't think it's a matter of messaging. That's just too deep of a loss to where if we would have just packaged this differently, we would have gotten a different result. I just don't think that's correct. I'm glad we did it ultimately because this is a new feature of Texas politics. The legislature put property tax caps in place in 2019, and we've been holding steady on that 3.5% property tax caps. And at some point down the road, we're going to have to increase that level of property taxes to maintain current services. Clearly, the voters were not ready to do that this time around, but we've started the conversation. I think people now, no one even knew what a TRE election really was before this. Now they know. They were absolutely not supportive of it this time around, but at some point in the future, probably 28, if I had to pick a time right now, we're gonna have to have this conversation again, and I hope that we can kind of build on some of the discussions that we had this time around.
I think that you're right. I think that inflation's only going to keep happening and going up. So eventually we're going to have to come back here again because we are.
We are. And again, we're allowed to get 3.5% of additional property tax revenues per year. Property tax is about 50% of our revenues. And then, about 25% is the sales tax. And sales tax right now from year to year is flat. And then the other big chunk of revenue is the general fund transfer from Austin Energy and Austin Water, and that grows at about 2% a year. So right now, the city of Austin is growing revenues at about, let's say, 2 to 2.5% a year, when inflation is at about 3 to 3.5% a year. In other words, we're not able to provide as many services, year over year in that kind of scenario. At some point, we're going to hit a breaking point, and we're going to have real discussions about that. I was hoping that this would be the year. Obviously not. But again, if we want to maintain the quality of life that we have in Austin, we're going to need more revenue at some point down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. So before election results were officially called, Mayor Kirk Watson implied that Prop Q's failure sends a message about lack of trust in city government, right? So he sent out the, message and was like, okay, well, overwhelmingly, Austin has spoken. And he really, really honed in on lack of trust in city government. I'm curious if you agree. And if you do, what steps can the city take to rebuild that trust? Because again, I'm kind of on the fence with that. I'm like, is it trust, or is it just like you said earlier, the timing is terrible?
I think it's a combination. There have been some spending concerns that are fair. And he put up a message board post about this, where we're going to do a city council kind of spending reform. Again, we'll see what it looks like, but to curtail some of the expenses that some city council offices have had that have bothered folks. We need to respond to that. We can't just kind of hear those concerns and ignore them. In a democracy, when people are upset, you've got to respond to that. And I appreciate that the mayor is responding to that. I think the council will respond to that. And we're going to kind of tighten up some of the rules around the council spending that I think, legitimately created some blowback. And around, again, the city manager and some of the other kind of issues like that. We need to tighten up some of those spending rules. And I'm happy to do that. Because if we do want the voters to support additional government spending, we do have to demonstrate that we're being smart about it. We're being efficient with their money, their tax money. And I say this importantly, we are preparing for a bond in November of 2026, and that bond is going to be critically important. We're going to have probably a bunch of flood control improvements in there. We're going to have parks improvements in there, some affordable housing money in there. I'm really fighting for a senior center in North Austin at Gus Garcia Park. We have to continue to invest in ourselves. Austin has to continue to invest in Austin, but we've got to have the confidence of our residents and our voters in order to do that. So whatever steps we need to take to make sure that we regain that confidence, I'm all for that.
I saw Austin American Statesman released the story the other day about city council spending, and they had all these numbers and talking about how the spending was out of control. And I found myself getting offended because I think that while I was there, I was like, I don't know what kind of money they talking about, and I don't know what kind of trips people are taking. But when I was there, that stuff was not happening. And so it seemed really surprising to me when I saw that article. And I'm curious about, in these situations when someone you get a peer request, you find this information, and then that information leads to a sweeping judgment about what happens in council altogether, right? So now everybody in city council is flying each other internationally on trips or whatever is happening, right? I think when you start getting stuff like that, it becomes difficult to combat it becomes difficult to come in and be like, whoa, 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 I'm not doing that shit. That's not what I'm doing. So personally, while you're earning that trust back, especially around spending, like how are you primed to respond to it? Are you talking to your staff? How are you kind of responding to all of this spending rhetoric in your office?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that we've done, which I mean, I used to have a small law firm. In my law firm, we would always keep the fridge stocked with,
Yeah.
Cokes and fizzy waters and you know what I mean, just kind of crackers and just kind of little snacks for our staff. I don't think that that's going to be allowed anymore on the city. And I've done that as a council member. We go to Costco and probably spend $100, $150 every quarter or so on getting like barrel of pretzels and like what I mean, the little kind of things like that. I mean, I think that's a perfectly fine and legitimate expense. I think that's a basic treating your employees like human beings, and
not just that. I don't mean to cut you off, but not just that. I think what people forget, if it's a really long council day, there is no time to go get lunch. So it feels great to go over to a snack area in the office and just grab a granola bar until I can make time for some lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's true. And again, I think, for example, when I have used city funds for lunch, it's exactly that. We're going to be, for example, in a staff retreat where I'm at, we're going to be together all day in a certain spot, and we're not going to be able to go out for lunch. And again, when I have gotten like lunch and those things, I mean, we get Torchy's, man. We what I mean? We spend like, $60 at Torchy's. Again, I'm very conscious of those expenses, but at the same time, I want to be fair to my employees. I mean, that public service is, to a certain extent, a sacrifice. The salaries in the public sector are a little bit lower than in the private sector, but you still need to treat your employees respectfully. And this kind of, complete kind of nothing, no snacks, no sodas, I think that's going overboard. It's not really saving any money. I mean, it's just a very tiny amount of cost to buy. Like I said, I mean, like little crackers and peanut butter crackers and stuff like that for the office. But I do understand that when we have gone out, for example, when we have a Christmas party, I pay for that. I'll pay for that out of my own pocket. It's a balance, and I want to be conscious of it. And the one other thing too that has kind of come up is the travel, and I learn a lot from visiting other cities, and I've got to push back on that. We've done trips to Houston and Dallas to ride their light rail systems and talk to the administrators and operators of those systems, and we have learned a lot because we're trying to build one in Austin, and I need to go out there and see how they're working in Houston and in Dallas, and understand those systems. Do people need to be flying first class? Absolutely not. I mean, that's not, but do we need to travel to see how other cities are doing things? I think that's a critical part of being a good council member, is understanding, how does Chicago do it? How does El Paso do it? How does Charlotte do it? We've got to be able to kind of educate and inform ourselves and interact with our colleagues from other cities.
Yeah, I agree with that. So now Prop Q has been rejected. What are the immediate next steps for the city? Like, how long does council have to approve a new budget? Is there going to be a whole process, or do we just automatically go back to the city manager's budget?
So the city manager is going to release a new budget, and we are going to preview it God, I want to say on Tuesday, the mayor posted a schedule, a timeline for the budget release and adoption. But long story short, we will have a couple of work sessions to review and discuss the new budget. But November 20th is the day that we have planned for budget adoption. And we will also have the Friday after the November 20th, November 21st is a special called meeting just in case we don't finish on Thursday. And then we have that actually Monday after the weekend also as a special called meeting just in case.
Wow.
So
Okay.
we're moving in, and I agree.
You're diving in.
We need to have a budget for our own departments to know where they stand and so they can get moving on their projects. We have a lot of partner agencies that we fund. For example, the Sobering Center, which I'm on the board of, is a partnership between Travis County and the city of Austin. They need to know what their budget is going to be. So we need to get things done. We can't, spend, 30 days, 60 days trying to figure it out. We've got to move quickly. And I'm glad to see that the city manager and the mayor are moving quickly. The issue that really concerns me moving forward on the budget is the homelessness spending.
Yeah.
The public has been extremely clear to me that they want the city to do something about homelessness. And a good chunk of the TRE was homelessness spending. And I'm concerned about our ability to sustain the homelessness programming services without Prop Q. It's going to be really difficult. And the flip side of that concern is that if we're not addressing homelessness through support services to the homeless, case management services to the homeless, then we're going to default to addressing homelessness through the police, through EMS, through.
And that does. Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the most expensive and ineffective way to address homelessness. I hope we don't go back to this kind of whack-a-mole strategy where, we clear out a camp and it pops up a mile away. And then we go and clear it out and it pops up a mile away. I'm hoping, though, that the manager is going to be able to come back with a budget that maintains at least a good chunk of that investment in homeless services, because it's our community is demanding it. Unfortunately, they didn't want to fund it, but, they're still demanding it. And so we've got to do the best with what the resources that we have.
Gotta figure it out. Yeah.
We can manage this year. We have, good reserves, and we are going to pull from those reserves to maintain funding for this year. It's, I think, next year and the year after that really concern me, because we can't continue to tap our reserves. And then, again, we're not sure what's going to happen with the economy, but if the economy does take a dive, and sales tax drops, property taxes drop, then we are going to be facing some very, very difficult decisions. And that is, I think we can manage this year without people really feeling it too much. But come 27 and come 28, I don't think that we're going to be able to make it through those years without the public at large really feeling some of the cuts.
Oh, man. So are there any other things that Austinites need to be keeping their eye on as we kind of go through the resolution of all of this?
I'd say the budget, first and foremost, and the other, kind of major thing I would say again is the bond. We're in the planning process for the bond. We probably need to kind of finalize the bond by, mid next year and decide, what's going to be on it and what's going to go on it. And so if there's one thing that is going to impact people's lives in Austin, it's going to be that 2026 bond, because that's where we're going to get the money for, for sidewalks, for transportation improvements, for flood control, for things that people really want to see.
And is the bond something that the constituents will vote on?
They will. That's going to be, right now we have this task force, a citizens bond task force that's kind of reviewing everything. We've gotten a list of kind of all of the potential projects. And so that, I think, is something that folks should keep an eye on, and provide feedback on, because, I mean, we want a bond that the community is going to support. And so we need to know what people think, really as soon as possible. It's probably, the discussion is probably not going to kick into high gear until kind of January, February, when we'll really start moving on it. But that's the one thing that I would really encourage folks to keep an eye on.
Councilmember Vela, thank you for coming back on and talking to me again. This is awesome. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for being just raw and honest. I appreciate it.
I promise to be honest and straightforward, and I really just appreciate the CityCast making room for just, real and honest conversations, because we've got to have those. And I know people in Austin like that. They appreciate that. They're informed voters, and they want to know the truth and the facts. So I appreciate y'all so much.
That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to our last conversations with these guests in our show notes. And if you enjoyed our show, tell your friends, rate the show, leave us a review, and as always, subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. And if you really love CityCast Austin and you love conversations like this, support us. Become a neighbor today at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.